I'm from the South, and I went to graduate school in Memphis, and got to meet Elvis and some of the guys. And Elvis had a philosophy, three letters, TCB, and a lightning bolt. That was a little lapel pin. And he gave that to his staff. So we passed that out to people who do an admirable, really a beyond admirable job. And the TCB is taking care of business. And so that's what we as the board do. We take care of business. And because we take care of business, we get the job done.
Hey everyone, we have another live episode coming up on HOA Insights, where we'll dive into two very important updates affecting the U.S. housing market and board members, Fannie Mae and the Corporate Transparency Act. What change has Fannie Mae made and why? What is the Corporate Transparency Act, aka CTA? What does the CTA have to do with board members? What is the deadline for CTA compliance and why might that change? Tune in live October 10th at 3 p.m. Pacific on our HOA Insights YouTube channel, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all our latest episodes. See you soon! A regular highlight of the HOA Insights podcast is our Board Heroes feature, where we dedicate one episode each month to celebrate the remarkable efforts of HOA board members. To us, a board hero is one of the 2 million elected volunteers who deserve recognition for excelling in a role that often goes unnoticed. Today, we're excited to spotlight one of these exceptional board heroes and share their inspiring story. If you match our definition of a board hero or know someone who does, please reach out to us. Our contact details and those of our sponsors are provided in the show notes.
Well, welcome back to HOA Insights, Common Sense for Common Areas. I'm Robert Nordlund, and I'm here to share the story of an unsung board hero named Bill Turney. This is episode number 73. And if you missed meeting any of our other board heroes, you can find them easily on our website, hoainsights.org, on our YouTube channel, or by subscribing to HOA Insights on your favorite podcast platform. But before you hear Bill's story, let me introduce you to one of our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Kevin Davis, the president of Kevin Davis Insurance Services. Our experienced team of underwriters will help you when you get that declination. We provide the voice of reason, someone who will stand by you. Our underwriters bring years of knowledge to our clients that can't be automated by technology or driven by price. As a proud ANWINS company, we bring true value to your community association clients. We are your community association insurance experts.
My name is Bill Turney. I've served as a volunteer on the board of Park Square Co-Owners Association for the past 3 years. And when I'm not wearing my board hat, I'm just a husband, father, and I'm retired. Now, 3 words I would use to describe the job of being a board member are challenging, tedious, time-consuming, difficult, sometimes rewarding, sometimes painful. The main story, what I believe I can tell, is one of perseverance, commitment, and a common sense and success.
Park Square is a 177-unit high-rise condominium association in Houston, Texas. The property is 42 years old, has an annual budget of approximately $3 million, and is about 90% owner-occupied. Bill has lived there for about 12 years, and as you just heard, he's served as a volunteer on the board of directors for the past 3 years. We decided to start this interview by asking Bill what board position he currently holds, as well as what first motivated him to join the board of his association.
I'm president. What motivated me was several neighbors and my wife who insisted that I do this, which was to basically remove the prior board, encourage them to step aside, if not to remove them through the legal process, and to try to change directions for the association. But I also should probably tell you, this ain't my first rodeo. I served on a board in 1971. Then in 1976, I was president for 5 or 6 years of a residential community that we took over from the developer and had to build everything from scratch. Then I was involved in an association in Mexico because I had other experience in dealing with a condo association down there. And then here, so I've been 4 or 5 different associations. And I quickly went in and did the basic CAI board member course to make sure that I had anything that was new available to me.
It's always great to hear from board heroes that have a great wealth of experience serving on association boards. And Bill is a great example. We next asked him if he brought any special gifts or abilities to Park Square's board of directors beyond his personal experience as a board member.
Well, I don't know a lot, so I have to learn a lot. What I do is I try to research as much as possible. I try to go on the internet. I try to find all kinds of sources. Fortunately, the internet's pretty broad and enables you to do that. And I've been fortunate. I've had 5 different careers, so I understand finance and accounting, legal, marketing, operations. And for 10 years, I was a bankruptcy expert and appointed by the court to go in and take over companies that were in Chapter 11 bankruptcies, typically ones that had a criminal background. So I got used to having no institutional knowledge that was trustworthy and having to dig and find and put it together again, almost like Humpty Dumpty, off the wall and broken now. I was hired to come in and put it back together again. So I was familiar with the process. This was not Humpty Dumpty. This was just we needed to do some things to make sure we knew what we were dealing with. Every job I've ever had, I was hired to get the work done, to get the job done, to accomplish something, and to leave a good team in place. I've never been in my life hired to form a committee or run a committee. So my approach is it's a little too much autocratic, but I find that the work that really needs to be done is heavy work. It's easier if I treat the board as my committee and I use their expertise. We organize the board in a functional capacity where we have a CPA, we have someone who's an experienced facilities person, we have someone who's an experienced communications person, and we have someone who has got a history with the building and particularly with documents and prior activities. So we put all that together, and I use that as the president's board to help me bounce ideas and move forward. I try not to be heavy-handed, but I'm sure some people would disagree with that. But I always make sure that the board fully understands and approves everything that we're doing. Some people might say they should have been involved earlier. My point is, at the right point, everybody's involved. So probably a little heavier-handed than many people are.
Bill's experience as a bankruptcy expert is a terrific asset for any association, especially when a little bit of forensic accounting is needed to figure out what the previous board had been neglecting. Well, naturally, his skills and experience will be sorely missed when he eventually decides to retire from serving on the board. For this reason, we next asked Bill about the composition of Park Square's board, if they have term limits, and how long he expects to continue to serve as president.
We have 5 members, and each year, either 2 go off or 3 go off. We serve 2-year terms. We have a term limit of 6 consecutive years. So you can serve 6, stay off a year, and then you can serve 6 more. But 6 consecutive years is the term limit. I'm finishing 4 a year from now. And the question is whether or not I'm going to succumb and be enticed to run for another term. I'll be 79 this year. And honestly, I didn't plan on doing this when I'm in my 80s. So it's going to be a much more difficult process to get me to continue for another 2.
At 79 years old, we could hardly blame Bill for seriously considering retiring from the board at the end of his next term. Even so, he seemed highly motivated and devoted to his roles and responsibilities as a board member. So we next asked Bill how much time he's invested each week into his board member duties.
Most people don't do this. I put in between 25 and 60 hours a week. But you have to understand, when we came in, we're a self-managed association. Our general manager had just been hired. He has no high-rise HOA experience. He has a lot of excellent facilities experience. So what we're trying to do is he and I are working together to continue to bring him along to understand and learn more about HOAs, how CAI can help, learn about the governing documents, learn about dealing with people versus machines. So it takes a lot of time to do that. We've instituted reserve policies. We've all kinds of things that take a lot of time, but it's an investment in the future that if we are able to create a trail of breadcrumbs for future boards, so they'll have a policy to follow as opposed to just making it up as they go. One of the real problems in volunteer management is that typically, every 2 years you have a change, and within 4 years you might have a complete change of the board, and none of them have any experience. They don't have any knowledge. One thing we were missing was we didn't have any institutional knowledge. So we've had to scratch hard and dig and find as much institutional knowledge as we could, and that's been very difficult. The first thing I did was I read the reserve report, word for word, line for line, page by page. And one of the things in that reserve report troubled me. It said we needed to replace our windows immediately. Well, my windows were fine. So I questioned that a little bit. I got a window expert to come in. He said, your windows are fine, but you've got holes in the building. Your caulking is drying up. So that led us into an investigation that nobody here knew, but in 1992, the entire building had been reclad with a new eave system. The old system was falling off, and the developer paid to have a new one put on. We had no knowledge of that. That new installation had not been maintained. It had not been serviced. It had not been cleaned. It had not been sealed. So we started into that, and that's where the rabbit trail got long and deep.
In a previous answer, Bill mentioned that he started serving on Park Square's board of directors about 3 years ago. That means that he started in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted the way most boards conduct their board meetings. We asked Bill if Park Square had adapted to hybrid or entirely virtual board meetings. Here's what he had to say.
We always do it in person. We have Zoom capability, which some people like to watch. I'm a little old school. I like to be able to have people, if they want to come to a meeting and have their say, I want to give them that opportunity. We're required to have 9 regular board meetings a year. So we have 9 regular board meetings, have an annual meeting. We have 2 town hall meetings, and I might have an additional 2 to 3 special meetings, depending on what I need to get done. But we have about anywhere from 25 to 50 show up in person for the board meetings. And then we have anywhere from, I want to say 15 to 25 who attend via Zoom. Even though we've got a room full of owners and members, I really work hard to get the board members to talk to each other, because we're resolving issues and dealing with and making reports. It's not that it doesn't involve the members, but they are not part of that meeting. This is a board meeting. At the end of the board meeting, we adjourn and go to an open mic session, and then people can ask questions, make comments. And if they want to have something particularly on the agenda, if they will put it on the agenda in writing to either me, the secretary, or the general manager, I think 3 days in advance, we'll make sure we put that on the agenda and we'll deal with that. But otherwise, the meetings are board meetings, just like you would find in any corporation where the board sits down and talks to each other. I'm of the opinion that we have 5-member board. So if 3 of us got together, that would be tantamount to having a board meeting, because control would be there. So I never have a meeting that's not in front of the entire association. We've had an occasional workshop, but I'm very careful that it's just dissemination of information and never a request for a decision. Sometimes when you're dealing with difficult issues, it's very difficult for a board member to sit there and listen to this and be open to asking questions and all if they're doing it in front of 25, 35, 40 owners out there. It tends to get them they don't want to ask an embarrassing question. They don't ask, well, does that make me look silly? So I'll always try to make sure that I'll never, ever, ever allow a board member to be embarrassed. Always want to give them an opportunity to ask questions. And then when it's time for a decision, then we'll go through it again. We'll make very, very sure that it's one, transparent, but also that it's not embarrassing to board members so that they can ask questions.
While Bill described his management style as heavy-handed and autocratic, he clearly understands and has emphasized the importance of transparency between the board and the association at large. We next asked him if he felt that his tactics are helping the board succeed in its mission.
I think so. My wife says that one of my traits is that I don't suffer fools gladly. So I have to work hard on patience and letting people come to the conclusion. I mean, sometimes it's just easier. I can just do it faster than I can tell you or teach you. But then I'll have to go back and teach you later. But by and large, the board has accepted how we all work together. Some things I could care less about, and I don't want to be involved in them. I have enough on the plate right now. We're getting ready to do a $2.2 million special assessment. And that's enough to consume much of my time. I'm working on that board presentation today.
He certainly got our attention at the mention of a $2 million special assessment. And while that amount certainly isn't unheard of in an association as large as Park Square, we had to ask Bill for more information. Here's what he had to say.
Well, what we found is that over the years, many boards have come to the conclusion that they needed to do something. And the negative Nellies and people that were just against spending money or anything, didn't understand reserve, didn't understand maintenance, they always were so heavy-handed that they talked the board out of doing anything. And the board always thought that, well, if we try, we'll get defeated. I simply read the declaration. The declaration says that the board is obligated to maintain the facilities. There's no difference in maintaining something that's been deferred for 30 years than maintaining the hallways with the vacuum cleaner. And so we looked at it. Our lawyers agreed with us. So we're not asking permission to do the assessment. I call it a corrective maintenance assessment. There's operational maintenance, there's preventative maintenance, and a large part of what's not done is deferred maintenance. So if you have a lot of deferred maintenance, which we had, the option that you have to do is called corrective maintenance. We're into that process. Going forward, we just will absolutely refuse to defer any maintenance. If it needs to be done, we do it. But we're focusing heavy on doing the things that need to be done. And when you, in a high-rise building and you have the structure that we have, your maintenance of that exterior panel system is what keeps water out of your unit. So we're focused heavy on that. We have been, over the last 2 years, heavy education program to educate not only me, but our board and our owners. Buildings have a life history. They have a life cycle. We're 42 years old, and there's no reason that we can't go to old age. But just like humans, we have to sometimes take care of ourselves. I have a new knee. My wife has a new knee. We each have different things that we need. I've had rotator cuff surgery. So these are the same kinds of things that a building has to have in order to stay in top operating shape. So we're doing the things that need to be done, and we have educated all along the way. We're continuing to find things, we created for the first time a long-range plan that goes from 2023 to 2040. And to the extent possible, we try to mirror the reserve study results into the long-range plan. The reserve study, people don't look at that as a plan. They look at that as an inventory of assets. Oh, you need to do something with them. It's when you take that information and budgeting information and put it together that you create a long-range plan so that you can actually accomplish those objectives of taking care of the physical properties that you're directed to take care of. When you become a member of the board, you're obligated to do certain things.
We were happy to hear that Bill and the rest of the board were taking a proactive approach to planning out projects in advance in accordance with the reserve study, and also educating the community on the importance of accomplishing these projects. While this sets a strong foundation for the current and future boards, it's also vital that the board is able to quickly adapt to changing circumstances such as a global pandemic or inflation. We next asked Bill if there was anything else that he thought they could do to be more adaptable.
The first thing that I think we need to do is to continue to focus on our functionality, our available time, training, and professional certification. Functionality is that all too often boards have become a social club, and you get on the board so you can find out the latest gossip or put out the latest gossip. But I want people who bring a professional talent to the board. Maybe we'll go into it in a minute. We're like a small city, and we can discuss that in a minute, but we need the expertise. Second, we need to create more of a partnership with our accountants, auditors, professional engineers, reserve specialists, and the association-specific attorneys. The prior board had a litigator as our association attorney. He didn't have the skill set to manage and deal with association law and association's needs. And we need to understand that we really are not an HOA board planning parties and writing newsletters, stuff like that. We are a small city. We have all the attributes of that small city, and we need to act accordingly. We need to act professionally. We need to be more involved in legislation that impacts us. We need to treat this as a serious job and not just something, oh, well, I'm the so-and-so of the association. We need people who want to do the job and get the job done. Treat it as a corporation. There's always room for the social aspects of it, but let's get the job done first before we celebrate and have a party.
In that last answer, Bill repeatedly compared the operation of his association to the operation of a small city. Given Park Square's size and operating budget, we felt that was a fair comparison, but we wanted to know more. Here's what Bill had to say on that matter.
We have a small city. I'm the elected but unpaid mayor. Our board is the elected but unpaid city council. Our general manager is the city manager. We have taxing authority. We levy fees every month. We have budgetary responsibility. We have parks and grounds. We have tennis courts, the park area. We have landscaping. We have security. We have, as I said, we have our professional security people. We do everything that a small city in Texas does. Plus, our facility is about a $75 million facility. That's much more value than many small towns in Texas would have. So when we look at the responsibility, it's good to look at what it really is. It's not when we need to have a party or when we need to issue a newsletter. We do issue the newsletter. Our last newsletter was on water. It's 6 pages on water because we just had a small leak. Resident was in Argentina, and his pipe burst in his own line and caused $250,000 worth of damage. And so we're trying to get people to move to understand their responsibilities. But these are just things that are very technical, very professional in fly way off the radar screen of what many boards think their job is. Now, we take it more seriously, perhaps, because we are self-managed, but we think we are very professionally self-managed. We use the best experts we can find to assist us and guide us in that. Probably the biggest thing that we need to continue to deal with is to continue to work on policies. So policy simply, operations or the collections policy rather, the collections policy stops you from having to make a decision on every individual past due account. There's a policy. If they go past due 15 days, they get a $100 fine. If they go past due 30 days, they start getting interest. And it leads right into where the foreclosure will be posted. And so you don't have to make a decision, well, is Joe a good neighbor or is he a bad neighbor? This is the policy, Joe. Pay the bill. You knew this when you bought here. To me, the whole key is professionalism and treating it as a real job, even though we don't get paid. We just started working on a piping assessment. Not that that's a bad word, on a piping evaluation, because as all reserve people know, that piping has never been included because piping lasts forever. Well, we're 44 years into forever, and we figured out that forever ain't forever anymore. So we're beginning to do that. So we're going to adjust our long-range plan. People don't understand when I say the long-range plan is wrong the minute I publish it, because things have started to change already. So we're going to be doing our first update later this year as we update our reserve study. We're going to try to put in there proper provisions for our piping needs. So that means we got to do the testing in advance to know when we're likely to have those piping needs come up. So we're trying to be good little boys and girls and trying to be proactive. And we have an Elvis mentality also.
While he was emphasizing the proactive attitude of the board, Bill brought up another interesting attribute of the board, and that's their Elvis mentality. We'd never heard of that before, so we decided to close out the interview by asking Bill about the Elvis mentality of Park Square's board of directors.
I'm from the South, and I went to graduate school in Memphis, and got to meet Elvis and some of the guys. And Elvis had a philosophy. If you ever see Elvis, he had a lightning bolt, three letters, TCB, and a lightning bolt. That was a little lapel pin. And he gave that to his staff. So we passed that out to people who do an admirable, really a beyond admirable job. And the TCB is taking care of business. And what Elvis told his band, that they needed to quit paying so much attention to the girls, and they needed to take care of business, or there wouldn't be any more girls. So they started taking care of business, and of course became world famous, international, everything. So we use that taking care of business. We just awarded one last week. One of our front desk staffers was doing his job. He was watching the surveillance cameras, and he saw my wife get knocked down in the elevator by a large service animal, just knocked flat on her butt. And she's laying there as the door closes, and you don't know how bad off it is. So he sees it on the camera, and he comes running out from behind the desk, comes over, gets that elevator, and we don't allow our staff to pick up anybody because they're not trained in that. So she said, if you just get me to 17th floor, get Bill, he can pick me up. So because he knew what to do, was paying attention, he was taking care of business. So we gave him a TCB pin. And so that's what we as the board do. We take care of business. And because we take care of business, we get the job done.
We want to publicly acknowledge Bill for performing a thankless job well. We'd also like to compliment the entire board of directors at Park Square for taking care of business and taking their responsibility seriously to act in the best interests of the association. We hope you gain some HOA insights from Bill's story that helps you bring common sense to your common area. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to another great episode next week. And remember, if you match our definition of a board hero or know someone who does, please reach out to us. Our contact details are provided in the show notes.
You've been listening to HOA Insights, common sense for common areas. You can listen to the show on our podcast website, hoainsights.org, or subscribe on any of the most popular podcast platforms. You can also watch the show on our YouTube channel. Check the show notes for helpful links. If you like the show and want to support the work we do, you can do so in a number of ways. The most important thing that you can do is engage in the conversation. Leave a question in the comment section on our YouTube videos. You can also email your questions or voice memos to podcast@reservestudy.com or leave us a voicemail at 805-203-3130. If you gain any insights from the show, please do us a huge favor by sharing the show with other board members that you know. You can also support us by supporting the brands that support this program. Please remember that the views and opinions expressed by the podcast do not constitute legal advice. You'll want to consult your own legal counsel before making any important decisions. Finally, this podcast was expertly mixed and mastered by Stokelight Video and Marketing. With Stokelight on your team, you'll reach more customers with marketing expertise that inspires action. See the show notes to connect with Stokelight.